it's not got an obvious sort of human element to it whatsoever. It's more of a really abstract space. A big part of it is just being in a space that's visually interesting and unique and has an atmosphere to it. No one who thinks about Manchester as a city and is thinking about what's interesting in Manchester would usually pick a building site as anything to sort of, you know, it's not really unique or historical or important to anyone else. Like a really key aspect of the experience of being in this place and the feeling you get from it, which seems quite strong, is just the way things sound, which is like, yeah, I guess kind of the other half of the sort of experience of being here.
Very much about kind of transgression, I think is a well-known phrase, isn't it? About going where you're not supposed to go. Is to see, a closed doorway, a sign saying, keep out, as the reverse, as an invitation, isn't it?
Anyone who's involved in any form of urban subculture starts to look at spaces in different ways. I don't think you can sort of make a general statement about what they do, why they do it, how they do it, or what it is.
It's getting as much as you can, or getting more than you would normally get out of the environment which we live and move within. The thing that fascinates me is thinking, how is it that people can look at a supposedly mundane space and find something fascinating within it?
Yeah, you basically try and get in places that you've heard that other people have got into. And if you can't, then you just sort of, I don't know, improvise. I mean, when you're at street level, everything is kind of very loud and harsh. And then you go into a building and your adrenaline's going. And then you come out onto the roof. Everything's so peaceful up here. The sounds are just all diffused coming up from the street, and I don't know. It's just a really nice, fresh change to how you sort of are in your city, basically.
Well, I mean, coming to a place like this, it's completely out of, your standard kind of comfort zone. This place has been closed since 1996. So to come here, I mean, obviously there's a lot of people that have broken in here, but in terms of any kind of legal activity, there's been very little here other than security. So, you feel privileged to be in here, and I think that's what a lot of urban exploration is. It's that feel of, that sense of a privilege that you're there and no one else is. It's like a ghost town. It's just this huge empty space. It's completely unused, and I don't have any emotional involvement to this place, but there is a kind of a strange nostalgia about it.
We engage with space in a different way, we sense it in a different way, because we're kind of liberated from our rather confined sensory experience in most of the city. I actually wouldn't describe myself as an urban explorer. I describe myself as a bloke who goes round ruins. Although I've probably done more exploring, so to speak, in industrial sites of dereliction across the UK than probably anybody else, when I go into a ruin, my body is assailed by all sorts of smells, textures, dust, dirt, atmospheres. It inculcates a different way of looking at spaces. It attunes you to spaces and to things differently.
I quite like Victorian and Edwardian mills. Once you've seen quite a few of them and experienced quite a few, it becomes easy to see past the decoration and actually read the true kind of functionally driven aesthetics of those buildings. So they've given me a new appreciation of certain types of Victorian architecture that normally I wouldn't necessarily find particularly interesting.
I'm very interested in all of the ideas about, I suppose, encountering place differently, feeling space, smelling place, touching place. I find it all quite interesting. But the way it's coated with this narrative of adventure, kind of boy's own adventure, crossing fences, jumping over ditches, kind of, running down long tunnels. I find it all vaguely neo-colonial and quite peculiar.
Yeah, I think there's a community that are kind of maybe adrenaline junkies, a bit more fanatical about it as an idea on its own. Then again, a part of it is just curiosity and just wanting to see what's there and realising that there are places around that, I don't know, I guess sort of unknown, but not designed for humans in the way that the rest of the world is.
The one thing that interests me is getting in areas that were once grand and functioning, and then when you're in there, it's just like a shell of what it was. Being in somewhere that used to be in its prime and now is not, is kind of like a very strange thing, because it sort of exists, but it's not really that in existence if no one sort of sees it.
I think a lot of people who take part in it take the whole thing a bit too seriously, to be quite honest. They're not changing the world. They definitely haven't been anywhere that other people haven't been before them. It just so happens that not many people have been there before them, So that's why I find the whole clandestine I'm a sort of secretive night dweller ninja type stuff fairly amusing, to be quite honest.
Quite nerdy pursuit in many ways, that's entangled with ideas about physical adventure, but also, interestingly, cataloguing and photographing places. Their adventures are disseminated on web pages.
Photographs are associated with the tourist practice. I think people stop looking at places when they take photographs in so many ways. And that sense of kind of collecting the tourist souvenir of a 19th century factory or an asylum, and displaying it online, it's a very linear narrative. About wanting to go somewhere, getting there, taking the photograph. I don't know, there's a kind of a sense of being there, done that.
When you get your photo, it reminds you of like the feelings that you had during that trip. You're experiencing on many sort of different senses, like stuff that you're not experiencing in real life. Not in real life, in normal life.